Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm Tim Harris. Thank you for swinging back by. Today I have kind of one of the longest friends I've had in the industry and a bit of a grand pumbaa, Mark Bloom. Mark, thank you for being here, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So Mark is the co-founder of NetWorth Realty.
Yes, sir.
Mark and I met by random chance. God, it's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We were just sharing. I had that
lower than that.
I had that original email address still in my phone. Like I can't find stuff from last month, but for somehow I have that email address and office address from 15, 20 years ago
Saved it.
in my phone. Mark, for the audience, in case they don't know who you are, would you just tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Mark Bloom. I've been in this business now for going on 25 years. Only wholesaling. Obviously, I do personal investing and have built some houses, but we are a large wholesaler and hard money lender nationally. We have about 35 offices, I believe.
And you are an attorney in multiple states?
No, I have a license to practice law in Florida, but I do not practice law.
Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah, that was where I started. I went to law school and randomly bumped into an old buddy of mine who was wholesaling in South Florida. And had realized that I didn't really want to practice law, wasn't passionate about it, found it rather boring, and it was tough. And I also realized, as I was going into these law jobs, like these guys were not shy about the pitch that I got. Legit word for word was on the last job, and I was complaining to this buddy of mine who was a wholesaler. And the guy came in, he's like, look, we're going to pay you $125,000 a year, which was a good salary. He's like, you're going to work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 2 weekends a month. And I was like, well, when am I supposed to spend this $125,000? So, I think I quickly realized I was, naive young man, didn't realize what it took to be successful, really, and definitely didn't want to put that kind of time in. It's something that I wasn't even kind of excited about. And happened to find real estate and wholesaling and just ran with it.
Never looked back.
Definitely. There might have been some over-the-shoulder peaks, but thankfully never had to turn back.
If you've been doing this long enough, there's been a time where you're like, no, that was never.
Glad I kept that law license, just in case.
Well, the first segment every week's the bottom line up front, where I ask the guests to just take up to 2 minutes to kind of tell the audience the most important things you're seeing in the market today, things people should be doing, maybe things people should be avoiding, really just the clip notes of what we'll talk about for the next kind of half hour. Good to go?
Yeah.
Go.
So I think that a lot of the things that people should be wary for are the things that people should always be wary for, which is pretty much contractors. In this business, you make money on the buy side. If you do your numbers right and you know what your numbers are, those numbers aren't going to change that much in 3 to 6 months. I really don't care what happens, barring some massive catastrophe. So your real risk is making sure your rehab numbers are down and that the rehab gets done in the right amount of time. And then the market will function as the market functions. You can either sell or rent that property for whatever your predicted value was. That's really the biggest risk. And make sure that you're buying properties where you know what your numbers are. Don't just trust somebody else's numbers. And get a survey. Don't believe someone if they tell you they don't need a survey. I mean, if the house is relatively new, maybe. But look at it and hedge your risks, because there are very simple, identifiable risks that you can hedge on the buy side. As far as opportunities and things that people should be looking for, I mean, obviously interest rates are huge. They've gone up dramatically. I don't know that they're going to go much higher or can go much higher. The Fed is getting the result that they're looking for, at least edging towards the goal that they're looking for, that they haven't gotten there yet. And I think that buy, fix, and rent is still the best strategy ever, bar none. You can't convince me otherwise because I know the numbers. So sexy flipping is awesome. In a really good market, maybe there's houses that don't work as rentals numbers-wise that you want to take advantage of a flip on, or maybe it's on a main street, or but in a good market, you can make a turn on it. Great, amazing, but focus on rentals and you'll be a very wealthy person 20, 30 years from now, as long as you're in a reasonably sized 500,000 people plus metropolitan area.
I have gray hair. You have no hair.
Yeah. And what I do have, I shaved the other day.
Yeah, I have kind of a gray beard.
Gray.
We were talking before, 20 plus years, 25 years.
Yeah.
You've been through the dot bomb, the 9/11, the great financial crisis, the COVID weirdness, and then now this. But in your bluff, you said, barring a catastrophe.
Right.
Maybe I'm old, seasoned, or have enough scars that it doesn't hurt anymore, but this last 18, 24-month cycle, it hadn't really hurt that bad, right?
So, I mean, I will tell you I would say to the contrary. I think it's been really good for most educated investors who weren't just trying to get in or just trying to figure it out. It's funny. There's a couple things that brings up, and it's a really good point. So I agree with you, right? But I am an attorney. So I always have to leave myself like, oh, well, the Russians attacked and
right.
the Martians came and like no one saw that coming. So like there's always that tail end, right? But other than that, yeah, I've said to people a lot, like, look, man, if 2008 didn't kill everyone and you could come back in 5 years, 2013, and be back in the money more or less, maybe not everywhere, but starting to come back above, come on, there's nothing. And if that doesn't show you that, whatever you want to call it, government or the powers that be or the large money player, like, man, it's a machine. It's just a game for them to be able to put their funds to use. And yes, there has to be cycles because there needs to be buying opportunities. And there are things that happen that people are unaware of, like 2008, or maybe some people were aware of, but maybe not the whole of the financial industry. So I do think there are things, but yeah, man, that's why the buy, fix, and rent, it's so good. And even if you're buying, fixing, and selling, as long as you can take those properties and turn them into rentals, God forbid something happens, or owner finance, I think that it's the downside risk is has shown itself over the course of the litany of events that you just listed off to really not be that big of a downside risk.
It's the chart goes up and to the right, and I've always said it, right? Food, water, shelter, right? The three basic necessities for human life. You want to talk about a large corporate-owned thing, that's farming now, right? The food industry is owned by Bill Gates and all the big corporate.
Here's the thing. We're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
You hunt.
Oh, yeah.
I hunt. I fish. If I had to, I could dumpster dive. I can get food, right?
Yeah.
There's no dumpster diving for shelter unless you're actually living
in the dumpster.
Right. So being the landlord, the rent bill, unless someone has addiction issues or some other crazy medical stuff going on, is the first bill that gets paid no matter what.
And I've always said that you go all the way back to the Great Depression, which is kind of really when Section 8 housing and that kind of thing came online. And I've always said that you can always count on the government to pay for people's homes because we can't have 300 million people running around the streets. And then COVID happened and they showed us, my God, we will pay for people's homes. I mean, if you have a mortgage, don't worry, don't pay that. Right, and if you have rent, don't worry, don't pay that. We'll pay it for you. I mean,
welcome to Canada. I mean, look, I love America, and we're a very different economy. But the PPP thing and the rent forgiveness and all that was definitely
wonderful,
eye-opening.
I liked that money, Mark.
I don't blame you. I mean, look, we follow the rules of everything, and one of my partners, for the longest time was like, we are not touching that money because they are going to make us give it back to them at some point. And I'm like, man, I agree with you, but I don't know. Like, that's not what, and look, they're there. The other thing is, Tim, look, I've done this for a while. I've done these things many times, whether they be speaking engagements or podcasts. And our model, the wholesale model in single family real estate is a relatively new industry, right? Maybe 30 years. I'm pretty sure the guy that I worked for originally was the first guy who ever really came up with it on any type of a level.
That scale.
Right, on any type of a scale. So people would always ask me, man, because people want to punch holes in your stuff, right? And I'm good with that. I want to punch holes in my stuff too because I want to know what's coming, right? We talked about identifying risks. So people would always ask, what market doesn't your model work in? And I'm a relatively educated guy. I do also have a master's in finance, specializing in investments, and I'm a numbers person. Because everything,
it's math.
Everything is math. Hate it, love it.
Yep.
It's going to rule your life one way or the other. And people always come up with these scenarios, right? And I would always try to explain to them the supply demand side and the inventory side and why it doesn't affect us. The one thing that nobody ever said to us was a COVID thing was like, what happens if inventories go down by 50%? And I honestly would have been stumped. I would have been, it's going to affect us. And of course it had its effects, but it didn't negatively affect our business. So I do think some of these headwinds that people see, they can be opportunities, whether they be opportunities instantaneously in that day and time, or like interest rates, marry the property, date the rate,
right,
and get yourself a good deal and refinance later.
Well, on the way here this morning, I was listening to Bloomberg Radio, and they were talking about the most recent, as we sit here and record today, it's almost December 2023. This episode probably won't come out till January of 2024.
Happy New Year.
We'll make Mark the New Year's episode.
Oh, yeah, I look like a New Year baby, right?
They just released the existing home sales data,
Yep.
and it reached a 23-year low, the lowest in mine and your career. And also during that period, interest rates were the highest they've been in mine and your career. And on Bloomberg, it was interesting. They started talking about next year we're going to see people that start selling their houses because they just have to. This has been a year of they call it with the pregnant pause, kind of like, I don't want to sell yet because rates are high,
Sure.
But
I can stand it for a little while.
But in our industry, in our business, distressed housing, distressed sellers, motivated sellers, sellers of circumstance, it just happens. And I find it interesting, anyone that would try to like punch holes in your business, which is really bringing offline inventory online, kind of is
Sure.
the way I would think about it. I have a 22-year-old son. I love you, Alex. I'm not sure he could find and change a light bulb. And
I was probably the same at 22.
And Americans in general, in my opinion, are becoming less and less capable of basic upkeep of their homes.
Of their lives.
What did you stick to homes for this episode?
Fair.
I just don't see this lack of accountability and lack of ability. I just don't see how we don't continue to have more and more homes that can't be sold at full value given their current condition, which to me is just, I'm going to say it like this. The laziness in the American society is job security for us, in my opinion.
No, 100%. And then honestly, if you add into it, and this is weather's getting more and more significant, and whether or not people think that makes a difference, like a couple degrees in sun temperature on an asphalt roof, shingles start to wear. You get a couple extra hurricanes every year. I used to live in Florida. Those things will take a toll on a house.
Serious thing.
Floods, freezes, all these things create deferred maintenance and or real damage, as well as the fact that we live in a microwave society that needs to be entertained. And look, I'm guilty of it myself as well. Needs to be entertained every 5 seconds with a new clip or a joke or whatever while you're scrolling through whatever you're doing. And, these are habits that we create, and it does affect home ownership and the opportunities that we see in our markets for sure.
But as we stand here today in 2023, the home ownership rate is higher than it was in 2012 when the institutions entered the real estate investing space.
Yeah.
And I just, before we go to a break, I wanted to make that point because we get a lot of some of the most...
It's an interesting stat.
It is.
Especially because they're full throttle trying to own, whatever percentage of single-family American homes.
Well, they've just taken market share away from the little guy. They haven't taken it away from the homeowners.
Yes.
They've taken it away from the small...
Homeowners are still going to pay for their... Yes.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a quick break to come back. I want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground today.
Yes, sir.
Stick around. We'll be right back. At RCN Capital, we know that time is money. With our competitive rates and quick turnaround time, you can receive funding in as little as 10 days. We offer flexible payment plans to relieve the pressure of repayment process. Our team is experienced in making sure that you choose a loan that will suit you best. Get on the phone with the loan officer today by emailing info@rcncapital.com or clicking the link in our bio. Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm still here with my friend Mark Bloom. Mark, I want to dive right into NetWorth is a wholesaling company,
Yes.
but the name is NetWorth Realty.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about, as a lawyer,
Sure.
you decided that it needed to be a real estate company, a realty company, not a
Clearinghouse.
Yeah. Would you talk a little bit about your decision to make sure people are licensed, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. And just on that, I'm not allowed to practice law in the state of Texas or Florida. But I do have.
I only said that because you're prudent of your background.
Of course. And I just have to, that stuff. So NetWorth Realty was real estate brokerage because in the infancy of this industry, it didn't have the best reputation. And we wanted, as a professional, licensed professional person, myself and my partners, we wanted our people to be licensed so that they were accountable to the state, as well as so that there was a level of ethical knowledge and just, there's a good amount of vetting that goes through a state when they license someone.
Right.
We want someone to double check our stuff. And then lastly, and when I say double check, we want the people who work with us to know that there's an ethical standard that we uphold and that we don't do anything that is in direct contravention or even in the gray area of those rules. There's no reason. There's plenty of stuff out there that we can do legitimately, and we're not looking to get into that. And then also we wanted our people that we worked with, the buyers and the sellers that we work with, to know that even though we're not representing them in the transaction, like, we're a licensed real estate brokerage. We hold a license under the great state of Texas, and they are going to come a knocking, and there is, TREC complaints and all that stuff. So we expose ourselves to that. I mean, look, you're in this industry. A lot of people refuse to get licensed because they don't want to be subjected to that. We do a lot of things as a wholesaler that other people don't do, and we do that to really differentiate ourselves, right? And also to try and clean up the industry.
Well, it's important, and as you know, we do business back and forth between my investment company and your Dallas offices. Yeah. And my wife's a real estate broker, and it's always been not a fine line, but it's a line that she is a fiduciary to her customers has to walk. And we always tell people it's kind of, we play good cop bad cop. She's like, yeah, I can talk to you about buying your house, but once I talk about that, I really can't talk about representing you anymore.
Yeah.
Why don't you let my husband come out and talk to you about that? Like, it's kind of, but it's important. And it's, I respect that you guys do that because when I hear, not a knock against new people, but when I hear new people complain about licensing requirements, I'm over here like,
for your protection, man.
Seems like a good thing. Like, maybe we should make sure that you actually know how to follow the law before you
know what a contract is and how that works. It's a legally binding agreement. Like, there's a lot of things people don't understand. You can't just go write stuff into contracts in Texas anymore. And people don't understand that. And then all of a sudden they're practicing law without a license. And that's a serious, why I gave my disclosure, right? Because that's a serious thing. Like, you do not want to deal with that. And, I also think, and this is probably a topic for a whole other show, but now you start to get into the question of what is a commission? Is an assignment fee a commission if you don't have the funds to take down that property, never had the capability to take down that property and close on it? Like, what is that? And I'm personally all for that. I know everybody's got different opinions on that, but that's part of the reason why we do that.
No, and there was my buddy Jamil Damji, he advocates working with realtors, and he was sharing kind of some current licensing stuff, and it looks like there's 6 or 7 states that are coming up with some new licensing stuff. I'm all for it. I actually spoke at a city council meeting in Rockwall, where I live, a couple weeks ago. They were taking up the issue of short-term rentals. And at that point in time, there was a gentleman that's on the city council that happened to be residing in one of my homes. Because he had a flood, and we have really nice houses in our local community, and we provide housing and shelter.
And he didn't need a year-long lease.
Yeah, and he texts me, and he's like, hey, what do you think about this regulation? I said, I'm all for regulation. I mean, because the other thing is when you allow yourself to be regulated and then you go get a seat at the table, Ron LeGrand, good friend of mine now, said, when your head's in the sand, your ass is in the air, right? And then there's another saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
For sure.
Right. And so I went to the meeting, and I was the only short-term rental operator, even though a lot of mine are midterm, that stood up and said, here's my houses. I pay hotel and occupancy taxes to the city. I'm one of 3 that actually pays what they're supposed to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I provide housing, and I'm going to tell you about this preacher and this teacher and these people that live in my homes. These are homes, and if you're thinking about regulating it, I think it's a good idea. Number one, it'll help me financially. I said this in the meeting. I said,
clear out all the nonsense.
Run out the shady competition. Number 2, you ought to know who's running a business in your neighborhood, right? Like
government's job is to protect the people, right?
Yeah. And I told him, I said, but don't try to ban. The ban is just going to cost the city a bunch of money. Look at what San Antonio's done. San Antonio's done the best job in the state of Texas.
Yes, sir.
There's a registration.
Yeah. Don't tell me what I can't do.
Right.
Tell me how I can.
Tell me the rules.
Yes.
And I'll
follow all your rules. Yes. Well, I'm good with that, right?
So it's kind of the same thing. Like
same exact.
Well, and too many times we hear about regulation and we start screaming, don't regulate me. It's like, stop, man. Like, let's be professional.
There's different types of regulation.
Right.
There's stuff that's important. I mean, like, look, everybody wants the FDA to make sure that their food is not poison. I don't know how good of a job they're doing.
I was going to say, well, I'm not going to.
At the present moment, but like there is regulation that we need, right? There's important things. There are protecting people. I think there's no question that, power corrupts and ultimate power corrupts ultimately, and like money drives people. I just saw a thing about a doctor who was fraudulently telling people they had cancer so he could get paid on cancer. And it's like people will do crazy stuff for money, so there has to be some level of regulation. But when that regulation starts to impair the choices and the options that businesses and citizens have unreasonably, then that's different.
How many states does NetWorth operate in today?
States, I think we're about 20, maybe 20 and change.
And how many markets?
Well, we're 35 offices. We have a couple offices, like Dallas has Dallas and Fort Worth. Houston has, I think, 4 offices in Houston. So I'd say city-wise, we're probably somewhere around 25 to 30.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how's your business? Now,
yeah.
How has the inventory shortage, even though, I think we're about to have a surplus. How is it going in the business, and how are you teaching your people to adjust market by market?
I think that it's going well. I mean, our business hasn't fallen off. We're not growing by leaps and bounds by any means, but we're nice and stable. I think that for a while, I think this has tapered off a bit, but for a while their margins got a bit deeper for everybody because there was just panic, and that was panic on the side of sellers and panic on the side of other potential buyers who stepped out of the market. So, supply-demand metrics worked well in the very beginning of this. But as far as dealing with it, I mean, we're kind of, we're digging off market for the most part.
Yeah.
We deal with.
Well, I know. I get your postcards.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're trying to do everything we can to use technology to leverage our strengths and our differences, as you talked about, some of the things that we do differently from other wholesalers. For instance, when we sell a property, it's a fixed price. When I say fixed, there's no title on top of that. There's no anything. That's what you get. That's what you pay. It's very easy for you to do your numbers off of. There's no surprises. The only price you get above that, or only costs you have above that, are elective costs, things that you would choose to do, like hire an attorney or whatever it might be. We go back and quality check our numbers every year. So every year in May or June, every office goes back for the prior year and does a address check in the MLS for every property that office sold, compares if it's sold on the MLS and if it was fully rehabbed and not a wholesale type of a, lipstick and then move it along. We compare what the price was versus what we said the price would be. And we try and, on average, our investors, buyers across the country get over 100% of what we predicted the value to be. We try to be conservative. But that kind of all started too when people would call me out on my values. And I'm like, we're not, I know we're not blowing our values. I'm not saying what the other guys doing or not doing, but I know our values are on point. Rehab, I mean, that's a bit more subjective, right? There's
It's complete.
82 gazillion decisions that come into effect between the time you close on that property and the time the rehab is hopefully done.
82 gazillion.
And I
You're
get
probably right on that number.
I get no say in any of them, right? But you want my rehab number to be dead nuts on. And look, we go get contractor bids, and we do our very best. We try to update our numbers. We try to be very real and accurate. And I think by being open, by being honest, by being legitimate, by not, having people smearing my name and dragging the name through the mud, because we do try and do the right thing, has helped us to maybe weather some of the storms.
Yeah. So rehab, you brought it up in the bluff earlier, and then you just brought it up again. And I always say, there's three levers in this business, right? What you pay for the house, which oftentimes the market dictates, right? I mean, I may want to buy the house for 50, but if the other offers 100, I mean, I'm a nice guy and all, but
Agreed.
Then there's what you spend on the house to get it ready for whatever your desired exit is, rent, sell, whatever. The market kind of sets that, right? If I want to sell a house for 300, the market kind of tells me what it needs to look like to sell for 300.
Or if you could even sell it for 300.
So the only control I really have in the middle is how good I can get at rehab, or how well I know my numbers, or how good my relationship is with my contractor,
For sure.
and that type of thing. So maybe Jeff and I always try to make sure people find a way to make more money in every episode. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some things
I like that
you've heard throughout the industry.
No, I'll give you a good one
on the rehab
I'll
side.
give you a good one. This is one of my favorites. Coming from Miami particularly, space was always at a premium, and
Outer space, space of the house.
The house,
Okay.
right? Yeah, of course. Partially because they're older houses. Miami was built in the 50s and then pretty much abandoned for quite some time, and then everybody came back. And partially because there wasn't a lot of dirt for new construction, so you had to figure out what you were going to do with it. One of my favorites is, and this happens a lot in Texas, a lot of garages that you'll go into. There's the 2-car garage, and then there's the bump out for the workbench or the laundry facility or whatever it is. For $1,000, maybe $2,000, depending on what's on that wall. You can bump that interior wall out to it's usually a lip that you step up to, right? Bump it out to the lip, capture that square footage. If you're in North Texas, you're $300, $200, $300 minimum a square foot.
Yeah.
So you're capturing all of that for a couple $1,000 maximum. And you're losing nothing that holds any real value to you in that house whatsoever.
Right, because people don't even have workbenches anymore.
They don't use them. And there's go get a stackable and put it in a hall closet or something. There's plenty of, you could even get a stackable and put it inside that area, but have it be part of the inside of the house rather than the outside of the house.
Yeah, so the math is if you add 50 square feet at $200 a foot, I mean, that's $10,000.
$10,000 for your $1,000.
Well, let's just call it $2,000.
For your
so
$2,000.
you're $5 extra money.
In a week.
Take that to the bank and send us the change.
Please. I'll take Hanukkah cards are fine too.
Hanukkah cards, all right.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's a great spot to stop, take a break, come back, do the Money Minute to hit some rapid fire. All right?
Sounds good.
Stick around. We'll be right back.
REI Inc. is a monthly business publication for real estate investors, covering all types of real estate investments and strategies. It is the most comprehensive real estate investment publication on the market. All of the articles are written by the top leaders in the industry, so investors are assured of always getting the best information possible. Each month, REI Inc. also profiles the top companies in the industry and provides insights and data into key regional markets. Along with their sister platforms, the REI Referral Network and Highest Invest, real estate investors have exclusive access to off-market investment opportunities and national acquisition and disposition initiatives. To learn more, visit www.rei-inc.com, where you can also access the REI Referral Network. Also, be sure and visit www.highest-and-best.com to view the latest exclusive off-market assets with near immediate acceptance decisions and closing strategies. You can also email marketing@rei-referralnetwork.com to request more information.
Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. Tim Harris still here with the amazing Mark Bloom. Mark,
Easy.
yeah, amazing.
Wow.
It's time. Well, that was
Tell my wife, would you please?
What's her name again?
Amy.
Amy. Mark is a great man.
I love that.
Amazing.
That?
He's amazing. The amazing Mark Bloom.
I didn't even have to pay him.
All right, the Money Minute. 60 seconds. Best advice you have to entrepreneurs, investors out there. Imagine it's the only advice they get for the next 30 days.
Yes.
It's got to be the go juice. You ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Timothy, you and I were sitting here earlier talking about how we're aging and getting gray and how it's a little harder to digest the elephant than it was maybe when you were 25. My best advice for you is to jam it into the top of the funnel as hard and as fast as you can. And when you think you can't do anymore, smack yourself in the face, sit up, quit being a sissy, and put more in at the top of the funnel, especially if you're between the ages of, 15 to 19 to start, depending on when you start working, and 35. Because when you hit 40 and 45 and 50, it gets a lot harder to put that time in. You have so many other things that are soaking up your time. You have so many other things that you have to focus on. Some of them more important than maybe going and having a lunch or a phone call with someone who might generate some business down the line. But when you're 25, be married to the game. This is a compounding of efforts. It's just like the penny a day doubled every day for 30 days. All right? If you do that, it's $5.4 million. A penny a day doubled every other day for 30 days is $136. So you're going to do it every other day because that's how frequencies roll. Oh, I crushed it last week. I crushed it yesterday. My in-laws are in town. I gotta do this. I don't feel good. Whatever it is, forget about it. Like, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to jam it into the top of the funnel as much as you possibly can, and that will yield results over time.
So I knew you were a good leader, but I didn't know you were like motivational. Were you a basketball coach or what?
No coaching. Just our people.
That was some Wolf of Wall Street stuff, right?
I appreciate it. Well, look, it's experience, right? We've been doing this for a long time, and you learn if you're paying attention, which everybody should be. You learn from your lessons, right? If you learn from your lessons, then you're willing to change and recognize what you're doing wrong. And at the end of the day, what people need to recognize is that every decision you make is a value decision. Right? If you put a cheeseburger down in front of me and my wife and a veggie burger, I'm going to choose one because of the things that I value, and she's going to choose the other because of the things that she values, right? It's the same thing with your time. When someone shows up to our office meeting at 8:30, at 8:32, okay, maybe some craziness happened. But for the most part, here's what happened. At 7:30, you had the opportunity to leave the house. You stopped and went, well, if I get there, I'm going to be there at 7:45 or 8 o'clock. And what am I going to do for an extra half hour? I'm going to play one more game of Super Mario. Or I'm going to make myself a protein shake. Or I'm going to take a 10-minute nap. Or whatever people do. I don't know. That's not what I do. But you make that decision, and the results, unfortunately or unfortunately, are the life that you're going to live 20 years from now. So people just need to realize that every minute, every second, every little decision, when you throw your tissue into the waste paper basket and it doesn't make it, do you pick it up?
I do.
I do. You want to know why? Because you're a successful person. Successful people don't leave stuff on the floor, right? There's an opportunity for excellence there. Are you willing to take it? Or are you going to go, oh, I'll do it later, right? You're not going to do it later. Somebody else is going to do it, or it's going to get so gross that you're finally going to do it. Like, these little decisions affect the big decisions, and I think young people particularly don't get that. And what we try to do is just help them to learn from our mistakes.
Well, I like that you brought up compounding a couple times during this episode.
Key to life, man.
I get asked a lot now at the stage of my career is, what's the one thing you do different, or what do you wish you had done different? My answer is just keep one more. You're like, one more what? Like, if you plan to keep one this year, keep 2 houses. If you plan to keep one this quarter, keep 2.
Yes, sir.
If you plan to keep 3, keep 4. And I actually started saying that before I read Ed Milet's The Power of One More book, but he much more eloquently puts the point on it.
Sure.
It's that one more rep, that one more thing. Like, after 20 years in the business, if I'd kept one more house per year, my net worth would be about $10 million higher than it is today. just one more house. And there were years that I flipped 140, 150 houses.
And maybe if someone explained that to you at the time, then you would have kept that one more house. And that's what, God, thank you. That's what you're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. It's that one more rep. I tell people all the time, when I was out hustling, I used to do all my stuff all day. And then at 9 o'clock at night, I'd make 10 more phone calls.
Right.
Because if I worked, this isn't for everybody, but I don't need Sunday. I'm 25 years old. I don't need a day off. What I want that goal out there. And every minute of every hour that I can spend trying to get closer to it, I'm willing. And you're telling me I got to take a day off because you need to play with the kids? Like, I didn't want to do that, right? So I would work. And at 9 o'clock at night, I would call 10 more people every single night. Because if I worked, let's just say 300 days a year, right? And I made 10 extra phone calls. That's 3,000 phone calls a year. That's over a 20-year career. Are you kidding me? How many more houses am I going to buy? How many more contacts? How many more opportunities? How many other, it compounds, and it's infinite. And the thing about compounding that I try to explain to the people who work with us is that you're probably never going to fully understand it. So just make peace with the fact that it is so powerful that you have to just take advantage of it and put it in up front, and it will do its thing, right? And that's why that riddle works. A penny a day, doubled every day for 30 days, or $1 million. The human brain can't comprehend that a penny a day, doubled every day for 30 days could possibly be more than $1 million, let alone $5.5 million. Same thing the other way. People go, oh, well, I did it every other day. It should still work pretty good. If 5.5, I should get 2.5. Because I ask people this all the time. Well, what would you, if you did it every other day? 2? 2.5? Because that's the simple math. Half. $164 is what you get. All right. It doesn't work when you do it every other day. There has to be consistency in everything that you do.
You know, this is great. I think back to my time. You were talking about Sundays, and growing up in Texas, I always loved the Texas OU game. And when you were talking there, I remembered this one year. It was a big Texas OU game, and I was supposed to go, and I got this call. This had to be 03.
Decisions.
And I was working for, I didn't know my own company yet. I was still working for Home Investors, and this lady had an estate, and she wanted me to come out on Saturday, and you look, and it's right during the game. And I remember kicking myself like, I don't want to go. I can just reschedule it. But I went, and she had the game on in the background, and the volume was off, which I hate. Like, if the game's going to be on, turn the volume on. And I just remember, like I bought the house, made like $25,000 or something. And it was, my brother was giving me shit. Like, man, dude, don't go, right? My girlfriend at the time was, don't go. Right, like everybody wanted me to be at the party
because that's where they were.
But I had this drive, this hunger. It's funny you reminded me of that. Like, people at RCN sometimes think I'm a weird person. Like, I'm the executive director, but they get emails from me 24/7. Like, some of these people, they have work cell phones. I don't even know how that works. Like, the only phone I have is a work phone. Like, all I do.
I can barely keep track of one cell phone too.
They sent me the work phone. I sent it back. I was like, nah, bro.
It's gonna lose that.
Why do I need two? But I'm gonna send you an email when I have a thought. I'm not gonna wait for work. Like, we're always on. But by being always on, it has afforded us the opportunity to be off when we desire.
Man, I tell people you can put it in up front and have time later. Or you can have time now, and you're going to have to put it in for a lot longer.
Right.
Like, that's just the way that it works. You get to choose which one. It's like people, when they sell their house, you don't get to choose what you're going to sell your house for. You get to choose if you're going to sell your house or if you're going to rent your house. The market is going to tell you what you can sell that house for. You can put a gold toilet in a house in the Colony. You're not going to get $1 million for a Fox and Jacobs 322 1,500 square.
Toilet may get stolen though.
Toilet may get stolen. It might get some good pictures. You might get some more followers, but there's just natural limits of what can be done and how things need to process. And we live in a world where people are trying to work, 6 hours a day, 4 days a week. Let me tell you, that ain't going to do it.
Well, let me say,
not going to do it.
On something you said earlier on that line, there's a lot of people right now, and if you're out there listening and you're working from home or you've got your hybrid schedule, I'm going to tell you, I feel like there's a reckoning coming on that. And if you want to set yourself apart, be that guy or gal that does what Mark was talking about earlier, that gets out, shows up at the office early, because I think leaders like us are going to be looking for the people that show up ready to put in the work. And those that are present in the physical in these office spaces, I believe are going to start to pull away from those that are remote.
I would agree with you. I also think that people don't always, when they're working with or for someone, they don't always understand the math of it and the value of those leads. So like we get it all the time. Oh, there's favoritism. Man, we pay money for these leads, and I need to give it to someone who has maybe not the highest probability of closing it, but a very high probability of closing it. And the person who's in the office 2 days a week is likely not that person. I mean, if I'm running a baseball team and I have an opening for a batter and I'm bringing in a pinch hitter, I'm bringing in the guy with the highest batting average. Like that's what this is. The numbers rule the day. And the more swings at bat you take, the better you're going to get at it, the higher you should be able to get that batting average, or at least know what your numbers are so you know how many leads to do, so you know, to get where you want to be. You do have to be obsessed with it. Like,
I completely agree.
You can like it, you not like it. Doesn't matter to me. Like, you have to be obsessed with it at a level that unfortunately turns some people off. Like, I'm here strictly to help people, but some of the people who come work for us, I'm sure they don't. That guy's crazy. Yeah, I am crazy. I'm crazy about what I want. I'm crazy like a fox, right? Like, I'm obsessed with my life and where I want it to be and how I want it to be. And I'm not just going to take a passenger role in it at any level.
And at the end of the day, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Hey, man, that's my Ice Cube story. So, like, I'll give you so when people are, people want to know the stories, right? Like, how did you do it? There was a point in my life where I was successful. We had a bunch of offices. We already had NetWorth going. When I say a bunch of offices, half a dozen offices. And I was doing a lot of speaking engagements. And I used to do I put on my monkey suit and do my little dance. I had my bow tie and my 3-piece suit and my glasses. And
you had the bow tie. I remember it.
Middle of the summer, right? Texas, it's, 105 degrees. And I had this refrigerator where I'd get water from, and I was getting a glass of water, and it would always shoot out. When you pull a cup away, it'd always shoot out an extra ice cube or two. And like, I'm running out the door. Maybe I don't think I was running late, but like always a little frantic. And I just remember being, for a while before this, I just kept asking myself over and over again, like all day, how do you become a more successful, responsible person? How do you become a more successful, responsible person? And I just kept drilling this into my head, trying to like work it out, massage it. And as I'm standing there, I get this, this flash, this moment where this ice cube is on the floor, and I realize that I have a choice where I can leave, because I went through it in my head. Okay, if I leave, it's 105 degrees. I'm going to be gone for 8 or 9 hours today. By the time I come back, that ice cube is no mas. It's melted, it's evaporated, it's gone, right? Or I can stop and pick it up and put it in the sink. Well, mathematically, same result, right? So same, but not same, right? Because successful, responsible people don't leave ice cubes on the floor. Irresponsible children who want other people to do things for them or don't think that the details matter, leave ice cubes on the floor or tissues on the floor or whatever it might be. And those little decisions, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If your car is disgusting, your work is probably somewhere along the same line. Maybe you're doing a little bit better job of masking it, but that's how you treat it, right? And that's just what it is. And people need to recognize that. And that's, again, going back to what we talked about, trying to be better every day. Like, that's how it's done. You try to make better decisions, which will give you better results. Your life 20 years from now isn't going to be what you want it to be. It's going to be the product of the decisions that you made today.
Amen. And we're going to stop there, because that was like, drop the mic. I won't drop the mic because they'll get mad at
It'll get loud.
NetWorth Realty, how do people connect with NetWorth?
So NetWorth Realty, we're on the web, networthrealtyusa.com. You're welcome to go there and check us out. It has a list of the cities we're in. Our properties are only available through our agents. They're not available anywhere on the MLS or anywhere on the web, not on our website. So if you'd like to speak to someone, please get on our website. Again, networthrealtyusa.com. Check out where they're at. Reach out. We'd be happy to help anyone, buyers, sellers, agents, anyone who needs assistance in the investment real estate market.
Brother, this was an excellent.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. We're out of time. I hope you paid attention. I hope you listened, and I hope you take action and stop leaving tissues on the floor. So until next week, Tim Harridge, remember your network is your net worth, and today you've been growing both. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.